As fighting in eastern Ukraine turns into an artillery duel, the Pentagon announced it would provide the Ukrainian military with its most advanced artillery rocket launcher and munitions in an effort to give it an edge over Russia. Here's how the system works, and what it could potentially do, as the war stretches into a fourth month. What is an artillery rocket? Artillery rockets are rockets propelled by a solid fuel motor that can carry a variety of warheads. When fired at a great distance, most artillery rockets were unguided and imprecise during the Cold War. In the 1970s, the United States invested in a new weapon it called MLRS, for multiple launch rocket system, designed for use in the event that Russian armored vehicles massed for World War III on the border of Western Europe. 2 pods of munitions could be carried by the M270 MLRS launcher. Pods held either 6 cluster weapon rockets capable of flying 20 miles or a larger guided missile called ATACMS, for Army Tactical Missile System, capable of flying 100 miles. The 23-ton launcher moved on treads, at speeds up to 40 miles per hour. Years later, the Pentagon introduced a more easily transportable version called HIMARS, for High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, which is based on a wheeled truck that is much lighter. Unlike its predecessor, the M142 HIMARS truck carries only 1 pod of munitions, but it can move much faster on and off-road, and can be shipped on a C-130 cargo plane. Has the United States used these weapons? Absolutely. Government records indicate that during Operation Desert Storm, the United States used more than 17,200 unguided MLRS rockets and 32 ATACMS guided missiles against Iraqi forces. Many U.S. soldiers were killed and wounded by duds left behind by those rockets. In 2005, the Army fired a new guided rocket, known as a GMLRS, in combat in Iraq for the first time. That rocket has a range of more than 40 miles, more than twice that of the older rockets, and its navigation is aided by GPS signals. Since the invasion, the Pentagon has provided Ukraine with 108 M777 howitzers, the most lethal weapons the West has delivered so far. But the range of the GMLRS is more than twice that of the 155mm shells fired by howitzers. The Pentagon has spent approximately $5.4 billion to buy more than 42,000 of the GMLRS since 1998, according to a report published by the Congressional Research Service last year, and commanders in Iraq and Afghanistan used them frequently. What's the difference between a rocket and a missile in this context? The nomenclature can be confusing sometimes, but generally the word rocket is used in a military context to refer to relatively inexpensive unguided weapons powered by solid fuel motors, while missile is generally shorthand for guided missiles, more expensive and complicated weapons that use movable fins to steer themselves to their targets and can fly much farther. The Pentagon has already sent short-range, inexpensive and unguided anti-tank weapons that are classified as rockets to Ukraine, like the AT-4, and the longer-range Javelin, which is a guided missile. That delineation worked well in the past with the MLRS and ATACMS weapons, but in more recent years the military has built weapons it calls guided rockets, like GMLRS, which are often older rocket designs upgraded to have guidance systems and movable fins on their nose to steer them. The money part still holds true, though. GMLRS rockets remain far less expensive than the old ATACMS and the precision strike missiles being developed to replace them. How powerful are these rockets? Using the HIMARS and GMLRS together can offer an amount of firepower that is similar to an airstrike, all from a mobile platform. The upgrade in explosive power for the Ukrainian military will be profound. The warhead in each M31 GMLRS rocket contains a single charge of about 200 pounds of high explosives, while the 155mm shells fired by howitzers contain about 18 pounds. Howitzers like the M777 can fire at a rate of about 2 to 3 rounds per minute. The GMLRS rockets can be fired singly or in a ripple of all 6 in just seconds, rivaling the power of an airstrike dropping guided bombs. Does Russia have anything similar? The Russian military has primarily used 3 types of unguided artillery rockets during the war in Ukraine. The largest, the 300 mm Smerch, can fire a guided rocket, which makes it more accurate, and has a range similar to the GMLRS, although few have been seen in photos of the war. Most Smerch launches in Ukraine are unguided rockets, many containing cluster weapon warheads. Do the US rockets have other advantages? There's one major advantage to the MLRS and HIMARS launchers: they can be fully reloaded within minutes. Both vehicles have a winch that allows them to lower an empty pod to the ground, pick up a new, loaded pod, and pull it into place. The Russian launchers must be manually loaded, 2 by 2. Why hasn't the US sent longer-range ATACMS missiles to Ukraine? President Joe Biden said in an essay published Tuesday in the New York Times that the White House was not encouraging or enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. While reporting on the war, a senior defense official who served in field artillery and was not authorized to speak publicly about Pentagon war planning, told me that the Army has comparatively few ATACMS missiles remaining in its inventory, and those that it does have are earmarked for use in dire contingencies like a war with North Korea or an effort to defend Taiwan from a Chinese invasion. Occasionally, however, the U.S. military fires an ATACMS missile to send a message, as it did just more than a week ago during military exercises with South Korea, following a North Korean missile test.